What about John?
Alright,
Is
we
John
are
coming?
live.
Mary? John, Mary?
This is the
No,
new
we
John.
have,
He's been
Oh,
replaced.
this is the new John?
Just a new John.
Yes.
Hey, John.
DJ will introduce Mr. Buck, just in a little bit.
Right.
Right, we know each other.
Of course.
How are you?
Right back.
Yep.
How can you recognize anybody that you
That's the problem.
Okay, we ready?
How can anybody not
Okay,
recognize
we're
you?
gonna call the meeting to order.
Well, that's true. I know I'm always shy.
All right, we are governed, how about call the roll for us,
I
please,
sure
ma'am?
can. Mr. Carter,
Here.
Mr. Grant,
Here.
Miss Kennedy,
Here,
Mr. Norton,
Here.
Miss Pace,
Here.
Miss Pratt, she's not here, Miss Stubblefield,
here.
Mr. Anderson
Okay,
is not here at this time.
we have a quorum.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we do not have the minutes for the previous meetings. We will do those in June,
Yes, ma'am.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so you will get copies of all of those, including the minutes for this evening. Okay, personal appearances. Do you want to say something, sir?
I'd love to. I want to introduce all of you to my new planning appointment. John Mayer is no longer with you guys. Mr. Ryan Buck will be taking over. Please take it easy on him. He's been doing his homework about the comp plan. I've tried to catch him up. But he's got a lot of good ideas. He's been out here for a long time. Ryan, I think you know everybody in here now.
Yep.
So I just want to come and introduce you guys to him, and if y'all have any problems with him, let me know. I'll take care of it. Other than that, y'all have a good time. Thank you for all your hard work.
Okay, so then we'll leave.
That does, I have budget homework after I'll do that, and I'll see all this stuff again, I'm
We're just
sure.
trying to create more homework for
See you
you.
I
guys.
know, that's what I was, I don't wanna hear about my next batch of homework. All right, I'll see y'all after a while. Y'all have a good night, guys.
Good night.
Bye,
Okay.
DJ.
Thanks for running that.
We don't have any citizens
Welcome.
sitting out there, so we'll skip over the citizens' comments. And so unfinished business, does anybody know anything that we need to take up? I wanna ask one thing, and I asked this one time before. We sent out letters on the, signs in the marsh.
Yes.
Do you have an idea of where we are with that?
Yep, so I know that Eric had a conversation with Mr. Barber last week.
Okay.
Or maybe the week before when I was out. And met with Charleston County, who would have to approve the encroachment permit.
Right?
They had a discussion about where the best place to relocate those signs would be. It's actually going to,
all of the signs, or is Mr. Barber a specific sign?
so Mr. Barber's specific sign is the only one that is approved for the MOU per council's work session in
And that's
August.
the Bowens one?
That is the big Bowens Island one, yes. And if COA, the outdoor adventure sign, wants to move with them, it would need to be attached to Mr. Barber's sign and have his permission. So it stays as one sign, though it will advertise two businesses. So the agreed upon location was actually out of the right of way and on city property, abutting the new fence that they just put in.
Got it,
And
okay.
so we finalized that resolution and MOU, and that will go to council next Tuesday.
Got it, okay. I didn't think, okay, what are
Yeah.
we doing with these things? Are we moving them or whatever, yeah. Okay, so that's, anybody else have any unfinished business or any questions that we wanna ask at this point? No, okay. Michael? you
No,
have-
ma'am.
You don't have a question, okay. All right, we are not voting on the plat. They have to do some more work on this, correct, before this is, can come back to us.
Yep.
So we're gonna move on with the comp plan, and we're gonna do public input.
Yes. So, in your packet, you'll see that the results from the citizen survey that was distributed, it went through social media, different Facebook groups, city website for people to, give their opinions on what they thought about the comp plan and, what progress is being made from the 2015 plan to now, which is what Planning Commission is doing. We're updating the 2015 comp plan. So most of the respondents had read the 2015 comp plan. Those that didn't said they just didn't know where to find it, or that it existed. So we educated some people that we have a city document. So this could kind of lead to skewed responses, like for our survey, because some people didn't know that the document existed, thus they probably didn't know about the goals or the progress, but they gave their opinion anyway, and that's totally fine. So this also shows that we probably need to do a better job of communication to the public about what the city's doing, what resources we have available, and like what planning commission even is, because that is one of your major roles, is to do comp plan updates. Let's see.
Well, you got 486 people to respond. That's
Yes.
pretty doggone good.
Yes.
For out.
So, well, that is actually, we need, if you go to page 10 of your packet, the red stuff is the new. So this is going to mirror the other elements that I sent, where it's black text for the existing, and then the red is the new stuff that's added. So the 5-year update, I think we only had 37 responses total.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
it's like,
more. That's more like
yes,
it.
yes. For the update, it's not going to get as much publicity as the full rewrite of the comp plan is going to. And probably people had some internet fatigue from COVID, having spent their whole year on the internet, that maybe they didn't want to take a whole nother survey.
What's the timing on this comp plan, Kate?
In what sense?
When does it have to be done? You know?
So it should have been done last year.
Yeah, I know.
But with COVID, we got an extension from the state, and we're really on no one's timeline but our own. Aaron says we would like to have this wrapped up by like summer.
Okay.
And then we can start over again.
And then we can start over right again. Maybe have no, I'm just kidding. But we'll do the next full rewrite.
That is what we do.
Yeah, in 2030, I think we might actually hire out for a consultant to do like a really nice job for our 2030 comp plan. So yeah, we'll finish this and start right back up again. So the area that the city should focus its resources on over the next 5 years is protecting natural resources. That was the clear winner. So some ways that we can succeed in doing this is reviewing the other long-term plans, such as sea level rise, dew management, marsh management, and beach management, and implementing those action items. So as we look for new goals that we'll do in our next agenda item, pulling from, hi Mr. Barker, pulling from the previous plans that we have. I'm gonna mute you, Adam, is that okay?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
I did the same on mine.
Oh, I think I just unmuted you. Okay, I think we're good. So as we look for new goals to create or assess how we're doing, pulling from these new plans that have been created and done in the last 3 years since the 2015 plan, that would be like a good thing to do and see, assess how we're doing with those, and then what can be added to the comp plan, especially since we have a new resilience element that's like added to this update.
Yeah, now, the resilience is all new.
Correct.
But you had some information on that. Tell us basically what we hope to do with that.
Yes, so resilience element is centered around natural hazards, and then bouncing back from different climate adaptations, but also looking at like food security, transportation, basically anything that could impact the city. What is our capability and our capacity to implement change to reduce the impacts that challenge faces?
But the biggest challenge there would be a natural disaster.
Yes, so hurricane,
Then how
sea
we
level
do that.
rise. Yeah, and so what the resilience element does is it breaks down each of those hazards, potential hazards, and then outlines the capacity that the city already has, and the needs and goals section would then go further to say, okay, we have a freeboard, or we have a marsh buffer, or we have 6 fire engines, but we need X, Y, and Z to do better based on the assessment from the resilience element. So that is all drafted. The full final draft narrative is on our website, and you guys like preliminarily approved it so we could get to this point. So if you guys need a refresher, it's on our comp plan page on our website. But kind of going back to our survey, the majority of the respondents said that the city had not made progress in protecting community character. And so I've actually gotten a lot of different public comments, not formal comments that would be like to planning commission, but just like little snippets here and there. There's interest, again, amongst the community for some historic preservation assessments. I know that was brought to you guys a few years ago, and Erin explained that everything that goes into having a historic preservation, commission, ordinance, whatever.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
Mhm.
So figuring out where we are, how much development has happened, especially since 2017, 2018, when Planning Commission was presented that with short-term rentals, a lot of bigger buildings that have been constructed in the last few years. We have had, I want to call it an offer, but a connection with the Clemson College of Charleston Master's Program for Historic Preservation to almost do like an audit as a class project.
We have an audit
Okay.
also.
And
Yes.
so looking at what those resources are that we have available, if anything has changed, with new development, what's the change between those audits? Are we losing that community character? Is it fine? Do we care? And so that's something when we look at more closely at the community character goals and needs, just seeing if that is a pleasure of the body and if that's something we want to explore. We can either strengthen those goals, add new goals, and then basically pitch that to council. As a reminder, anything that goes in the comp plan does not necessarily mean that it's going to happen. It just allows council to use this document as justification for future planning. So we kind of saw that in the Burt's case. They had to show, okay, this is in line with the comprehensive plan, and so it goes for the future changes that we would have happen. Doesn't mean that it's setting it in stone, but definitely has some legal power for.
I would like for us to see what the college could do for us.
Yes, me too.
I think that's a
It's a great
good start.
Yeah, it's also
I mean,
also free.
We tried this
Yeah,
before.
the price is right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
It strengthens ties to our educational institution, it gives us more information to work with, I think
Right.
that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Well, we've partnered with them on several other
Yeah, we
surveys
have.
and
Yeah.
projects,
And there is a survey out on houses, particularly those 1940s, 1950s, because each one of them was
Yeah,
a different
in that
era.
one.
And we have that information.
Okay.
There's
So we could-
precious little of those still left.
Yeah.
That haven't been incorporated in something larger or torn down and rebuilt.
Right. So with that
Mine's
assessment,
in 1930.
yeah.
Yeah, ours was a 55,
Yeah.
your parents' house that we lived in. So I know that the historic ties has a lot of problems with it, but could there be any financial incentive for somebody like Ryan who comes by and buys these little cottages and instead of tearing them down, renovates them, gives them character? I'm thinking of your pink house that are out there, everything's so
Yeah.
cheap, built up fences. We renovated a 55 kit house on Folly, and it was really, really difficult to do because of the FEMA laws and how much money you could put into it, and the fact that the wiring was horsehair, and we only had so much money in that 50% bucket to make, to preserve this adorable cottage that has history on the island. So short of doing a full historic preservation that has all those ties to it, is there something that the city of Folly could do to encourage buyers and developers like Ryan or individual homeowners to not tear this cottage down, to renovate it, but to do so in a way that maybe gives them a little more leeway on what they need to spend to bring it up to code and make it safe?
We tried to really raise the price to tear a house down, and it didn't have any traction.
With council?
No, it went through,
It went-
but it's
it
only
went-
like
yeah,
5,000,
yeah,
so it really
so
isn't
Yeah,
like
if it's an
high
old-
enough
yeah,
to
if it's an
discourage
older
somebody. I
building,
don't
But
think.
5,000 is a drop in the
Well-
bucket if you're spending 1.5 on
Right.
a house.
Right.
If it would have to be 50,000.
Right.
So,
Yeah, we were shooting for more at the time, and it just, I mean,
They
it's,
didn't.
yeah. And then we had a committee that, Adam, who's joining us, they did a whole bunch of work on the historic stuff, and council didn't do anything with it. It went nowhere.
But we have a different council from them now. I mean, maybe would we get Adam and Catherine and some of them newer
Be nice to have a
maybe we
work
could get
session
some
on that.
traction?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so as we develop a comp plan, we can definitely do stronger community character goals. What the college would give us is an area character appraisal of Folly. And then some of the implementation strategies for that of keeping community character, whether that is creating a historic preservation district or guidelines for specific houses, buffer rules, whatever that may be. Or if there's a way that, you know, we can do financial incentives, it would probably be more a financial decentive. Like, if you tear this historic house down, it's gonna be $50,000 or whatever it may council decides. That is something that we can put in, then council approves the plan, and then we say, okay, now we want a work session on this, cause we want to start implementing.
Yeah, I
this.
think that, I mean, I'm sure
Yeah,
you could probably
I'm all
have your
for
own,
it.
it's,
Yeah.
it's nice to see when you know, one of the little cottages sell, I go, and then I see your son, I go, okay, like, if it can be saved, he's gonna save it.
Right,
You know?
right.
You've done some great
He's
things.
done that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So many
Absolutely.
of them, the structures are not something that you can save.
Right.
They're not built to wind codes, they're not built to flood
Exactly.
codes, they're not built to anything.
But if we can have community standards that say, keeping the Folly cottage look, you know, kind of like, I don't know if we need to do, if it would fold into, you know, DRB stuff and saying, you know, a commercial district needs to have, you know, this kind of aesthetic and maybe strengthening those rules a little bit more. We can definitely look into that. Or talking about the FEMA rules, historic properties that are in a historic district are exempt from that FEMA 50% rule.
Yeah, but we
So-
have to
Then we don't have-
historic
yeah.
district.
Exactly,
Right.
and so that would have to be established, have the,
Right.
which maybe we could do with, if we had strengthened our relationship with the colleges.
Right, but I'm
Um,
a little leery of that, because for instance, in the house that we bought, and I'm sure you faced this, like, the windows were single pane wooden.
Yep.
Well, that, like, I needed to change those
So,
to make the house.
and I think
livable.
that's still something that the community would be able to control.
Right.
How strict those are, or what those characters want,
But you can do it
characteristics that you want to.
aesthetically.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, they
You
couldn't
know,
change
it's
out the
just
windows
keeping
because
them-
they had to do all the wiring and the roof and
Right.
the kitchen, so the bucket wasn't big enough.
right,
Right.
right, but if you
There might-
remove the bucket, right?
Right.
And you just say, okay, we need it to look a certain way, but it can be energy efficient and brought up to code.
Right.
And you don't have to worry about elevating the structure.
Mhm.
That elevation requirement is waived because it's in a historic district from a FEMA standpoint.
Okay, that makes sense.
And we might want to partner with the Preservation Society and Historic Charleston.
Yep, there's
As
tons
well.
of state grants as
Yeah.
well.
Mhm.
So it's something that we could do.
And there's a
If
lot
we
of
wanna
state
pursue
money
it.
for rehabbing
Yes.
historic.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but we just have to figure out what that historic is. But there's, I would call, graduate programs do really, really good work. And it's very, very cheap, very free. Hey, sorry, we're just in a meeting.
Okay, thank you.
They did, the college did a house for a friend of mine. And, I mean, it was fabulous what they did and
Yeah.
found out. And
So I'll,
it's back to what it was.
I will, yeah, I'll get with my contact and, we can get that ball rolling. I don't think it's gonna be until spring classes, so January, to get on the curriculum and everything.
Yeah, but people get in line for it.
Exactly, and we have time to discuss
Mhm.
amongst us, do work sessions and inform the students and the class and the college as much as possible, so we get the best end result, so we know what we want
Right.
before just kind of jumping into it blind.
Good.
Some of them are not worth saving.
Yeah, and I'm sure
Right.
there could be some
They're
kind of
not
where
worth
Aaron
it.
says, okay, we're looking at the condition of this and
Right,
it's not
right, and
salvageable.
so is it worth saving the actual structure, or is it worth new construction within that area resembling what was there?
Right.
And so those are like some different approaches. that we
Instead
can
of
do.
doing a district, could you actually, I know this is super labor intensive as I'm hearing myself say it, do it house by house as the one said by the age of the house, like if
That-
this was the 30s, 40s,
The
or
whole
50s
lot
as
would be a
opposed to.
district.
Right, well, that's
Yeah,
that's what the unincorporated Charleston County does. They
Okay.
have specific buildings that are either on the National Register or the State Register, or they deem it within their committee if they meet certain guidelines. If it's
Okay.
not on a registry, they make their own registry.
Right.
That's what the planning, historic, gosh, I
And
can't
there are
remember.
tax incentives.
Right, and so they basically do like a buffer around it, like 1,500 feet, or we would obviously make it much smaller because we're a smaller community than Charleston County, but they do it that way. They don't have a contiguous.
Thank you.
So that kind of talks about our community character. Some other things that was brought up from community character was improving traffic control and parking, which we have a parking committee that was formed a few months ago. They'll do a report to council next Tuesday, basically recommending that we do a study on our parking. But it'll be a little bit, it's more involved than just paid parking and parking
many times have we
availability
done
and
that?
traffic counts, which is what's been in the past. It'll look at more movement around the island, bikes, alternative parking, how, like, connectivity in general. So that will be the pitch to council. I do know it's been earmarked in this budget too for 22, I guess.
One of the important features that we focused on was the rights of way,
Yes, yes.
and that is your connectivity.
Yep. So using those mid-block right-of-ways, so they're not blocked by trees and people
Sure.
can use them.
That was a good thing.
Yeah, so that is in the comprehensive plan. Great progress has been made on that. Obviously, we have a lot more work to do still. Some
And
other.
the parking, we have to bring in the highway department because these right-of-ways are owned by them,
Yeah.
but not owned by the city of Folly Beach.
Yep, so we have, I know Eric and Jared from Reef Parking have been working with DOT on getting permission for paid parking and doing different parking like counts around the island and figuring out what actual available spaces that we have. Folly has the most parking out of the beach communities in the Charleston area by far.
We did a count on that parking not too many years
Yeah.
ago as to how many spaces there actually were.
Yes.
um,
Yeah.
for them to do and what the state would allow us to do,
Yes.
okay?
Yeah, and so they're monitoring, there's the House bill at the state level, for paid parking and right-of-ways and prohibiting parking and access to the free state amenity that is the beach. And so we're monitoring that, and that's kind of being juggled with everything.
Has any study been done of the change of lanes on Center Street to determine whether that was a good thing or not?
That has not, and I think that will go into
Yeah,
the
that- We
new,
did that, didn't we?
into the new, like connectivity.
We did talk about that.
Oh, yeah. I
Oh, yeah.
know. But then we did it.
Yeah.
And now my question is
Did it work?
working?
Did
Does
it work?
really work?
Well, I
Right.
don't think you can
Did
tell
it work?
because the restaurants are all in those parking spaces now, so until COVID is done, I
They
don't think
should-
you're gonna get
they
it.
should
Well, I
be
was
out
thinking about
now.
traffic flow as well.
How
Yeah,
it's
it was a
flowing.
traffic
Yeah.
flow, it
That
wasn't
was
so
the
much
reason.
parking.
But the restaurants are out of the parking now. The only thing that's barricaded still is the city hall construction for, like, Jack of Cups has their tables out and you can park in front of them.
But like Follywood still has their mulch, like halfway into the street on
Right.
Mary.
Right.
So
That's-
not all of them.
That's a DOT right of way. That's not the city parking.
Yeah, but it's actually no road.
No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So I don't think all of them have quite gone
Done.
back to their pre-COVID
Yeah.
footprint.
Yeah. They've been ordered too. Let's just say that. So that has been lifted. So let's see some other things. There's a consensus that the natural resources that there's been great progress on that, especially with the renourishment of the beach, the plastic bag ban, smoking ban, and then all of the long-term plans that we've done in the last like 3 or 4 years. Same thing with public services. Some enhancements have been tree trimming, public safety presence, improved city services and technologies like website, social media, the marquee out here that turned to a digital sign. So then we went through the survey and we asked what were the important goals, and then what were some missing goals. So we have 3 buckets of goal categories: protecting community character, protecting natural resources, and enhancing public services. So the most important goal for community character was regulate business activities that may affect the livability of both commercial and residential areas, and increase efforts to identify rental operating outside of current regulations. So for the respondents, this seems like the biggest threat to community character was those rentals and short-term rental growth. So we have not re-examined the short-term rentals since 2018. So maybe it's time to review the number of maximum rentals, length of stay, geography limits, just based on feedback for what the most important goal is, and feedback from public input that we've had.
Yeah, if you look at all these responses, when you're talking about it, it's consistently, the number one is, if you're looking at rank number 1, preserving the small town character. And then you look at page 13, the number 1 thing people are asking us to do is regulate business activities to affect the livability of commercial residential areas.
Right.
I took the time to read through all this, and first of all, kudos to you, because your eyes must be
that's good job.
crossed.
Yeah.
By the
It's
time
all
you
right.
got done with this. But what I saw over and over and over again, stated in different ways, is livability, focus on the residents, regulate the traffic, regulate the parking, regulate the tourists. I mean, I think residents are just crying out for help of, we're glad that you're here and we want tourists to be here, but my goodness, we have to live here too.
Yep.
And that's what I see over and over and over again, is how do you continue to make Folly funky and fun and welcoming, but at the same time, I had 30 people in a pool off my front balcony for 4 days straight.
Yeah.
Like, there's gotta be some kind of way to make tourists happy and make the residents stay sane.
You do know the disposition of the island is only 20% residential.
I don't think it's that.
It's 80% is rentals or some type of business, okay?
Right.
And that's been forever and ever, really. That number has not changed.
But it just, to repeat myself, what I said last meeting, where Luan, if you had a rental next to me and there was a problem, I could call Luan. The Airbnb next to me is owned by somebody, they're 2 streets down, it's owned by somebody that lives in LA. Like, who am I gonna call? Airbnb doesn't care.
Public safety, when we did the short-term rentals, we put a strike system in. And the way it gets enforced now, and obviously people don't know this, is through the calls. I have a nuisance rental by me. They built a duplex and swore they weren't gonna rent out both floors separately, and they do. And you just got to, I work with Aaron and them, but you actually call public safety. They come out and they start the strike system, and then
But is it illegal to have 30 people in a pool, or annoying?
It's
Isn't that
annoying.
I mean,
Well,
what can
then-
they do?
is that not
Well-
like a gathering of,
It's a noise.
like they need a
It's a
permit?
noise.
you can
But
make a
it's
noise.
at 3 o'clock in the afternoon,
Yeah.
like, they're not breaking any laws, they're just.
The noise ordinance really comes down to the person who's hearing it.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Well, it's time too.
it's time to, and also, if there are, is it 25 people now you have to have a permit for?
Yeah.
If you have a gathering, they have to have a permit, I think.
I thought it was 49.
Yeah.
It's changed a couple of times.
It's lower now for
It's
sure.
40.
It's 49 for an event.
Okay. This was an event, this
Now,
isn't-
and there are rules in the short-term rental that it's the occupancy of the dwelling. If the dwelling will sleep 12, you can have 12 plus 2, and that is the code. So
Present or staying
that
there,
is
or
that is
busy?
present code. Okay.
Technically it's overnight. If you have 4 bedrooms, you can have 10 people.
I just didn't wanna call public safety and have them go out and go, yeah, there's 30 people in the pool, like, what do you want us to do?
Yeah.
Well, if they're creating a nuisance in the neighborhood, regardless of what time it is,
Okay.
it can be called, and there are so many strikes, and they can pull the business license.
But we've only done that once ever, right? Am I wrong? Like only one house on the entire island has ever lost its license to.
And then they just
I'm
sold it.
sure.
I'm
immediately.
not sure that any of them have ever lost their license. The house sold, I knew that one
Yeah.
before they pulled the
Well,
license.
last year, things got a little bit more difficult with enforcement with COVID
Right,
and,
right,
and
right.
different things like that.
That's understandable.
But if you ever have a question about something like that, I call Eric or Aaron and just say, hey, or if somebody comes to me, because I didn't know what to do either. I'm like, hey, there's 20 people at this house across the street. It's got 4 bedrooms.
Yeah.
Something's going on. And so I started with them, but it's great to tell people to call them.
Okay.
So maybe we need some education to residents
know.
Yes.
about what to do.
Yes.
Well, that's part of the short-term rental licensing.
It is.
Katie, could maybe you write an article for the Sandsburg or something? Because I feel like most
Yeah.
residents read the Sandsburg.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, complaint process. That's a fantastic thing to have in there.
And, you know, 80% of the people that rent there are lovely people that, you know, it's just that bottom
That's always
20%.
the view.
That it's not that the rental isn't the problem, it's, you know.
It's
how
spring
can they
break.
scream? You don't know. I asked the owners of that house and they're like, it looked like it was one small family. Like, what?
And you know Eric works 7 days a week, so he's always out here.
Okay, thanks.
And he loves it.
And we're gonna discuss a lot of this like in depth in the needs and goals part. Okay.
So the most important goal for protecting natural resources is eliminate existing encroachments on sensitive waterfronts, marshes, wetlands, and riparian areas while encouraging environmentally sensitive development to protect the environments that define the beauty of Folly Beach. So one of the things that we could do to strengthen or implement this goal, basically just do an inventory of encroachments and hard structures and developed parcels along the marsh front through our marsh management plan that is actually outlined in the marsh management plan. And then also looking at zoning and planning strategies. Maybe we have a new Marsh Island residential zoning district that's along the marsh front and we have special requirements for that. So figuring out ways on how to protect that marsh, since we know the biggest sea level rise impacts are on the backside of the island, not on the beachfront.
The biggest what is the
Sea level rise
Oh,
impacts.
sea level rise, sorry.
Yep.
Mask.
So we know that we're gonna have problems there in the next 30, 50 / already have problems now there. And so just looking at best management practices going forward and,
Now, we did do something with hard structures in the marsh, because they're different than seawalls.
Yep.
They're,
Define the restriction of our salon.
a wall, a retaining wall.
Oh, yeah.
To keep the dirt from falling in
Yeah,
or
so it
something,
improves the
something
retaining wall
similar to
that
that,
was built in the
right,
program.
yeah.
Like something like polyphones or.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And we did approve, designs for those.
yeah. Yeah.
Um,
We just did berms, that was in December,
Mhm.
adding that, Adam led that effort, for allowing berms within that marsh setback, so it's a little bit softer, of an approach. Another one would be, working with the state on living shorelines, and those soft, basically having oysters out in the marsh to propagate new, marsh growth, is better, for sea level rise and actually weakens storms that come through. When you put a hard structure up, you eliminate your marsh. That's why the water just comes straight up.
It's just like a seawall, it hits
Exactly.
it and digs, yeah.
Yeah, so not great for water quality, not great for storm surge, and just overall like health of the environment. So if there's a way to incentivize those softer, more natural structures, there's a way
Ornate.
that we can do that. Exactly.
So you're talking like the berms that, Mr. Barker keeps talking about.
Yep,
Instead
yep.
of doing a hard, it's a,
Yeah,
okay.
a little
that
bit
makes
softer,
sense.
natural vegetation.
Yeah.
Well, your oyster beds create a different,
Yeah, it like
Thing.
lets the marsh latch on
Exactly.
and
Right.
really grows it. It takes a little bit longer, but it's a lot cheaper, and has a really good success rate too.
And the state now and the county dump the oyster shells back that they can get from different places.
They have a whole
Because they
SCORE
will,
program.
right, they will get more oysters
Yeah.
on them, and there we have more oysters at that point.
Yeah.
But
It's like a
instead of just
self-
dumping them or crushing them for a driveway, they now do put them back on the shore.
Yep, and there's a lot of nonprofits in the area that also do the oyster shell like bagging, and then also like help lay them out for living shorelines. So that's definitely something that we can promote with private owners to maybe connect with DNR for their SCORE program, or partner with a nonprofit if the city wanted to do that on public land. If we identified an area that had an erosion problem or marsh problem, we could do that.
Didn't the city do that last year?
Yeah, they had a
With
big.
the-
Was it last
pile
year
of
or
them
the
the
year
other week.
before
I think
last?
we
Oh,
were-
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure it was
It
here.
was all done at the land.
Yeah, they had a big pile
Yeah.
of them, they had bags. And you
So
could-
by now, they probably could
Yeah, 'cause you
see
get
how well
comments
it's
of,
working,
what
right?
are they doing down there with all those oyster shells?
Growing oysters.
That's exactly right. Where
Well,
do
it'd
you
be-
think that oyster comes from?
It'd be good to get a status update on those and see how well it is working, to see if it should be done across the marsh where we can.
I think the other thing that they looked at, and DNR looked at this, was the boat traffic and how fast they could go down Folly River. Cause that creates weight and washes
Erosion.
also. Yes,
We did something about that.
yes. And I can't remember exactly
There was a
what, but
certain-
DNR was involved in that
Right.
one, cause they control the waterways.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no weight clause there.
Yeah, right.
Yes, yeah, because a boat, I don't
And
know
if
how
they're
fast
flying-
boats go,
if
but they
they're
can
flying
create
through,
quite a
shoot
weight.
Okay, one last summary point, and then we will go into a more in-depth discussion on our goals from our progress report. So the most important goal for enhancing public services is traffic volumes on the island are increasing and creating dangerous situations for cyclists and pedestrians.
Yeah.
The city should explore alternate transportation avenues such as ped paths, public transportation, sidewalks, and increasing visibility at intersections.
We've done all of that.
Good luck.
So,
And the buses were one thing that we looked at one time with Carter.
Yeah.
And the problem with it was they would dump the people off out here and then picking them back up. It was a bad situation. So
Right.
Carter dropped it pretty fast.
yeah. So based on this and what we've known in the past that either has or has not worked, the city should continue the investment of ped paths. We have one, the Indian to Arctic on West 2nd Street, should be done by the end of this month. And then we'll also start on the Ashley one connecting from Loggerheads over to Burt's. So it'll go
It'd go from Loggerheads.
Loggerheads
Along
over to
Ashley?
Burt's, over Ashley is one, and then we'll have one that starts basically at Loggerheads at Arctic on the other side, all the way up to Indian on Second.
But it's not on the Loggerhead side,
It's on the other
the
side.
street.
It's
Yeah.
on the other side, right, yeah.
Yep. So that should be done at the end of the month, and then they'll
Well,
start.
they need
the
to
Ashley.
work a little faster.
I wish.
Built in Michael's backyard.
Well, Michael,
They're right there.
why don't you get out there and help them?
I told them,
Oh, you told them?
I
Okay.
told
you need to speed up. It's getting time for people.
And then so that kind of links also back to the traffic study that I mentioned to you guys earlier. And that's also a strategic plan goal that was set by council to deal with traffic and flow around the island.
We
So
did a traffic study one time,
Yeah,
which
that was in
was,
2010,
I believe so, probably, yes, because we hired somebody from some astronomical amount of money to count them.
Yes.
I told them next time they wanted them count, let me know, I can stand there and count as good as they can.
Yeah, it was
Oh,
basically.
Charge half as much.
And I only charge half.
Hey,
We
since you're
just
talking
need a
about
clicker.
this, with the parking being an issue over and over again, is there anywhere in this plan that we're addressing the fact that we have somewhere around 3,000 year-round residents and 28 bars and restaurants, and maybe there should be a moratorium on building any more bars and restaurants?
So that is something that could be added to the plan as a goal for sure, whether that would go under public services or that would go under community character. Don't know what angle you want to push, but I could definitely
And
see that as
I don't
something.
know if anybody else feels that's important, that we're looking at somewhere around 3,000 residents and probably 28 bars and restaurants is enough.
Yeah, but
I
how
want
many
them.
visitors do we have?
Yeah.
I mean,
But
just
again,
think-
the more we build, the more they're gonna come, the more they come, the more parking issues they have, the more traffic issues
Well,
they
you're
have.
gonna have a major brouhaha with the businesses if you,
It'll be better for the businesses that are already here because there'll be less competition.
that's
No, it
questionable.
won't. No,
I
that,
don't
no,
think
that
works.
won't happen, no.
No.
Been there, done that, tried that.
So if it is something that didn't work and maybe we can propose a new, hack.
The
Yeah.
parking has been an issue forever, with out here, because we just don't have enough parking. We've
Even
got
though
all
we
the
do have-
parking lots now, but, you know,
Even though we
still.
do have more parking
We
than the
do.
other islands.
Yes, we do,
But it's still
yes.
never enough.
Mm-mm.
I know one of the thought process of council is because so many people are coming here because of our pretty extensive commercial district of all the restaurants and bars and offerings that we have, is increasing the paid parking. So that would be converting spots that are free now to paid, and then also making East Arctic, a instead of a 2-lane one-way, it would be a one-way, one lane all the way down, and increasing paid parking on both sides.
But right now, that's one of the few streets that's safe to walk on because.
Right, and so by eliminating the 2 lanes to 1 lane, because right now it functions as a 1-lane road, not a 2-lane road, that you would have room for a ped path and more walking space. Because really, you don't see 2 cars driving side by side down East Arctic.
Rarely.
You
yeah.
see 1 car going down the dotted lines
Yeah.
and weaving in and out between people. And so and parking is on both sides right now anyway. So by keeping 1 parking here and moving the parking into the lane, basically that is traffic, then you have room for a buffer of land, people walking, car, moving traffic, car that's parked.
Did we
Which
not
means that-
already take that before DOT and got turned down?
So I don't know if it was before DOT, but I
think
know.
it did
We didn't end up doing that because what happened was they restriped it and did all that, and then
That, you're right.
they said if you pay X amount of money, we'll
Right.
be glad to come back
We'll
and do
We'll
it.
be glad to come back and
Yeah.
do it, yeah, you're right, yeah.
So I
You're
know
right,
that
yeah.
parking on both sides all the way down Arctic is in the talks for the DOT that Eric and Jared have been working on.
But increasing more paid parking will put more revenue in the city's pockets, but it doesn't help the residents at all. It doesn't address any of the concerns that I'm seeing over and over again in this comprehensive plan, because even on a Saturday, could be 4th of July, if you're willing to walk 4 blocks back to Hudson or Huron, there's a parking spot available. People just have a bunch of beach stuff and they want to park on Arctic or Ashley.
So then the city now has increased revenue for the amenities that the residents.
But I don't see that trickle down.
I just hate the whole idea of us getting more and more paid parking.
I do too.
You know, some poor person works for $10 or $12 an hour and come in here and got to spend an hour's pay to go to the beach.
Just take your.
You know, I
think
just,
that's the answer.
I just don't think.
We
And,
can't do it because those are DOT right
and,
away,
and
so.
by La Palms,
Yeah.
everybody knows what they just went through. So yeah, and one time we were talking about going further, and I just hate the idea of that, us getting more paid
So
parking.
yeah, it wouldn't go past Cooper, I believe. None of the paid parking would go past Cooper. I think it would just be Arctic and portions of Ashley, and it wouldn't go.
I'm just me personally,
Yeah.
I'm against any paid parking.
Yeah.
I think, and you know, it's a travesty this year. How many non-resident passes were there? 50 this year.
They,
I mean, I grew up surfing out here, and I have a ton of friends who surf out here. And anytime you park along the washout now, if you weren't one of those 50 people, you got to pay.
right.
You know, and that's just kind of shameful.
And again, if we took all that money and put it in a pot that couldn't be touched and said, we're going to take this to slowly buy more parking lots. But I think we all know that that's not what happens with that money.
That's not-
Well, you're not gonna be able to afford them to start with, and you can't tear the houses down to put the parking lots down
Katie,
there.
now on East Arctic, can you park on the left, if you were to take a left down here and the paid parking's on the right, can you park on the left?
On
There's
Arctic?
parking
On
both
Arctic?
sides.
I don't ever go
On
down
Arctic,
there.
yes.
Yes.
So,
It's paid for the first it's paid parking for the
right,
first
so
two
the
blocks.
first 2 blocks on your right side, if you were to take a left here, it'd be
Yeah.
on your right. On the left side of the same road, could you park there?
Yeah,
And
some of
Yes,
it's,
you can.
some of it is a couple of free places, but a lot of them
So
are
it's really not
paid.
creating any new spaces
No,
if we did,
it's just better using that for
And if you
pedestrians.
did that, all those people that own houses there, I mean, half of those parking spots are taken up by people that have put bushes.
Right,
driveways,
so we
so
would,
you
we
have
would
to go
clear, there would be a lot of driveway conflicts, but we would clear the right of way, cause they shouldn't have that.
Yeah, that's gonna be ugly.
So, but that's for council
They're not
and
supposed to have it there
staff
anyway.
to tackle. But
Yes.
just looking at the goals, just stating that the city should explore alternative transportation avenues, and that traffic's a hot topic, parking's a hot topic. So figuring out what our goals are, is something to be looked at. So,
When Carter looked at this one time before, one of the problems too was to find a place for people to park their vehicles on James Island so they could get on that bus so they could ride to Folly Beach. And that was an issue there as well, is finding that parking.
Did they park at Walmart?
They did park at
There is a parking
Walmart,
lot.
yes, they did,
Walmart.
yeah. And one other place, I think they built the new food line there,
Or the Publix or something?
or the
So-
Publix, yeah.
one of the last questions, was is the city missing any aspects to, community planning and what are the missing goals? And on page 15, all the responses are there. To shortly summarize that,
Oh, good,
We-
I
the
wanna
city-
hear your summary.
yeah, it's very short.
they're all over.
The city should include education and communication of rules to residents and non-residents, as we discussed in this meeting, limiting short-term rentals, livability issues, cross-communication between long-term plans, flooding and stormwater regulations, and investing in city staff retention and growth. So that's kind of my summary, based on my summary of our needs and goals. Yeah, it goes page 15 and 16. But from that, I would love to dive into section 3. So pages 17 to 27 of your packet is the existing needs and goals strategies that's already in the 2015 plan. 29 through the end is what Aaron kind of whipped up in maybe September of last year before I came on, and basically has like a progress report for all of these.
That's
So-
all the red stuff, 28.
Yep, so there's a legend at the top of from 28 to 36. So red is, it was worked on, but we didn't go forward with them. So basically the city studied them, said, we're good, we don't want to do that, and they're basically closed out. So, like green building practices, that's the first one. There was the committee that was created, it was assessed at the time, but there was no adoption. So that's why it's labeled red. Blue, it was done, it was directly related to the project, completed, implemented. So that would be create a new as-built survey requirements and adopted the model flood code ordinance changes. That is implementation strategies that the city has checkmarked for 2015 comp plan. And then orange is identified as important, but little progress has been made. So the first goal that you see with that marking is number 3, with the economic impact study, looking at number and frequency of beach visits, and then how we approach the Army Corps to secure funding for beach renourishment. So there has been again, some progress made with that. We don't want to close it out. We still think it's important. But are there maybe new implementation goals that we can move forward with that? So I don't know how you guys want to do it. I don't really want to go goal by goal because that seems very tedious.
Yeah.
And it's already 7:50. And so I tried to
I
summarize.
think it's some good reading.
Yes. And so I'm just trying to summarize. We can kind of go by like protecting natural resources, protecting community character, enhancing public services. So just kind of on the topic of natural resources, since that's the first one in our packet. Based on the, how many goals are in here? 10 goals. If you guys have read it before and you just skim it now, you know, is there anything that we need to improve on that you guys want to see either me add or strike from these?
I'm sorry, which section are we talking about?
We're talking about protecting natural resources.
Are we on page, what page?
28.
28.
Oh, so we're skipping that first part?
Yeah, because that's what's already in, that's already
Okay.
in 2015's plan,
Okay.
and it's basically re-looked at for you here, but in a color-coded, I think, easier to digest format than what's in it. So on natural resources, I know we had a lot of opinions from our public survey that we just kind of went through and talked about. But is there any like planning commission comments that you guys want to make on the natural resources front?
The only thing I heard was a lot of scuttlebutt about the new lights at the washout and whether or not they were endangering the turtles,
Okay.
and whether or not they needed to be shielded, so I don't know if the city is doing anything to address that. I don't know enough about turtles to know if that's true or not. That's just something I've heard a lot of the surfers, people that use the washout a lot.
Yeah. I would think they would have had to make them those orange lights,
I
right?
would think so, but I mean, apparently,
Yeah.
'cause I don't go out at night a lot, they're super bright, so.
I have a nature list and one of the.
Right at the washout?
Yeah, at the washout, when they put in the new LED lights,
They're
yeah.
lighting up the fort.
No, they're not. No, they're not.
You put a stop to that one, wouldn't you? Okay.
Not before.
On natural resources, something I wanted to look at was animals on the island. There's a lot of species besides sea turtles that probably are endangered and need protection here.
Yeah, I had 3 deer at my place.
We have marsh
bobcats,
deer.
The other
ring
day.
doorbells. There's 2 bobcats.
Oh,
I have
Oh,
a bobcat
really?
in my yard, too.
Wow.
Bobcat.
we have these
There's a big one
little,
and a little one.
we have beach mice that like only live in the sand dunes or sandy kind of soil.
That
They're-
would probably go with goal 6, Paula, on page 29.
Got rid of all
It would be great to assess them and see if there's anything we need to do to protect them, like what we do with the lights for the sea turtles.
So like an
How many
endangered
coyotes-
species
Do we
plan.
have coyotes here yet?
You know, I don't know.
Yep,
Not
We
that,
do we or not?
not that I'm
not that
aware
I know
of.
of.
No.
We have those deer.
You do have the deer.
Mhm.
Okay.
And I
Yep.
can't wait for
Yeah.
them to find my yard.
I'll send
My
them
biggest
all
fear is to wake up one morning and my yard is mowed down.
Well, just put one of those electric wires around.
I'll
I'm
take
just
this
kidding,
over
don't
to
leave it.
Melissa Grove.
Some tourists would be
Paula,
injured.
do you have anything else for
I'll send them
environmental?
over.
I have
Oh,
like
thank you.
List of-
4 other things, yeah. I have a list of things for the
Yeah.
environmental stuff. So I wanted to see, for those of us that are new on the planning commission, could we get an update from the city's consultant on her recommendations for like the front of the beach? What are the best practices for erosion control out there? We all know the Army Corps boats are out there dumping some sand. Does that work into anything with our, were they just kind of doing that on their own or with the city or,
That's with the city.
okay.
Where are they
So,
dumping at? That's, I was asking earlier.
out the east end.
Past y'all's house?
By the lighthouse.
So we saw them down in 1700 block one day and a few days later we saw them in front of our house. So I
Okay.
guess they're just popping
Putting
down.
the sand back in the system is what they're doing.
Yeah,
They're pumping it out of Folly River and putting it back in the system.
and hoping that it like migrates
Exactly.
onto
They
the.
hope it'll migrate
beach.
some on
What
the
we've been
shore,
doing
yeah.
forever.
So best practices about the beachfront seawalls and things like that. What's the best ways that we could keep dunes in place up there? I wanted to start a discussion, if you guys are ready, with OCRM about potentially moving the baseline from where it is now. It was set in 19... What?
On
So
the
evidently
beach?
Yeah.
Beach side?
Yeah.
We have
So
been-
I looked, and so I knew I had some correspondence. Evidently, Army Corps is not about it. However, OCRM and the state is open to it. But I think the project's on hold, and we just need to start incorporating it into, we're gonna put it in our beach management plan. And then have it connect, probably in goal 5, under natural resources, like protecting dune system from erosion and, so that could be an implementation strategy that is put into this, whether we think it'll actually happen or not, if that's something that we think that the city
Yeah.
would want, or would be a good strategy from an environmental natural resources standpoint, that would be an implementation strategy that we could add to
Yeah,
that.
that's
bullet
part
point.
of the dune management plan and planting.
Yes.
But it
Yeah.
So I
hasn't,
think we've already addressed it.
we haven't addressed the
But it's not in the comp
baseline.
plan.
With the baseline,
Okay.
we fought that one 2 or 3 times, but the baseline is a state line. And it goes from all the islands. All the islands have a baseline, but Folly Beach is different in that the erosion of Folly Beach is caused by a federal navigation project.
It's also
So-
different in that the other beaches have their line assessed every 8 to 12 years by DHEC, and it's moved accordingly. Ours is stagnant, and it has been where it's been since 1992. In some places on the east end, it's 100 yards out on the beach, and at high tide, it's even underwater. It's
That's
not,
because of state law.
Yeah, that's not a
That
date.
line was drawn
That
not by
line was drawn.
OCRM, but
Yeah,
was
right.
drawn by the statute.
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean it's not something we could pursue,
Well, that's true.
if that's something that we want to do. So I would just ask you guys to consider it and start a conversation on it, because it's serving us no purpose where it is now. It doesn't really affect the west end, the downtown commercial, the east end. Not until you get to the washout do you see this deviation where the erosion line's way up here and the baseline's over here on a map. So it's something important I think we need to consider, and it'll really help reinforce the dune management area that,
And we appreciate your knowledge of the history. Is there any possibility of, as you said, if it's not affecting downtown on the west side, that it could be looked at in a small section of the island that's changed dramatically in the last 30 years?
Well, the question is, how do you get the baseline changed? And what we're saying is it's very difficult to do that.
But
It may
we
be.
have gotten correspondence that the state is open to that idea and are willing to work with us. So that
I think that's
the
fantastic news.
conversation is willing to be had, whether it will happen or not.
Right.
We don't know, and putting it in the comp plan as an implementation strategy, again, does not guarantee that the city's going to do anything, or it's going to happen, or that it's law, but it opens the door for us to make that move, and for council to authorize that. As we see, looking at the resilience element, looking at public input, knowing what's happening on the beach, where our active beach line is underwater half the time, probably not a good reflection of current conditions. We also have multiple long-term plans indicating that we need to prepare for sea level rise. So it is something which is a need that has been identified by residents, by people who visit the beach, by people who live here. Would that be a potential implementation strategy? Sure.
Well, let's add it and see.
And also
if we're
that
gonna add it.
that baseline is a justification for the renourishment.
Right.
So, it's 6 one way, half a dozen the other. You always have to balance these things.
yeah, but it also helps not totally solve the problem, but helps somewhat solve the problem of property owners having to pay to backfill that 8-foot high level of sand. Because if that line's moved, then they're no longer responsible for that portion of
Yeah.
renourishment.
Private owners are required to replace sand that is washed away from hurricanes.
Is that happening on a practical level?
That happened
Like,
at the
are
last
people actually
renourishment.
Every
doing it?
renourishment.
Yeah.
Are people actually forced to redo that, like
Yeah.
it's followed through on?
Yeah.
It's part of the renourishment where they actually have to do it.
If they do something to cause the erosion.
Oh, okay, but it's not just happenstance,
No,
you'll
I mean,
house.
just because you own the house doesn't
That's what I
mean
was
you have
asking.
to
Okay.
pay.
Well,
If you have to redo your wall, it comes into effect. If for some reason your rocks fall or whatever the scenario is, then that's looked at then as to how much fill you have to have in order to do that.
But after renourishment, when we had those pocket beaches or those big places, they made those people, either they could pay the city to do it or they could do it themselves, but they had to fill that in.
whether or not they had a seawall, like even
Right,
if they
that's
didn't
part
have
of
a roofing.
renourishment.
Because the water would come in either way at the.
So it's circling behind it.
That's right.
Yes.
Okay.
And that is absolutely done. Spencer was really big on that,
Okay.
and all on y'all's end.
Yeah, okay, thank you for educating me on that.
Yeah, you can see a very clear map online. Whose website is it on? DHEC maybe? Or maybe it's their CRM, but where you
Your
can
worst
see.
pocket beaches are in the 200 block of Arctic. And those houses, those lots they weren't even filled there until after renourishment. They had a big pond in there, and when they put the renourishment sand, they created even more of a big pond. And they finally did get permission to fill those ponds in. That was a fight. And there's one pocket beach at the 300 block too, but those two in the 200 block were a battle for those two
And,
homeowners.
and they have some of the best sand dunes right now on the beach.
They do,
They
they do,
really,
yes.
they've done a great job with that.
Which you've got another reef sitting out off the fishing pier, and that protects that end of the beach, if you're talking about how the water hits and everything like that. So that's the reason that first 7 blocks has wider beach.
Okay, what about the groin control? We did 8th through 14th, or was it 8th through 12th?
No,
Is-
we went past 12.
Did it go past 12 yet?
Yeah, it went past
Is there any talk about any more of that? Or are we still trying to see how well that did?
Eric mentioned something about the wooden groins and having.
The rocks put around
The-
them.
Yeah, like either, yeah, because they're not functioning
Yeah.
right now. Like they're not doing what they need
It's
to
a
do.
nice seat out there, is what that is.
So, yeah,
They're breaking tourist ankles when they don't see them in the water.
yeah. I need to ask Eric
That
what,
Okay.
what
may be
we're
true.
doing with the groin. I know he said something,
Because those were just redone 2 years ago, I guess.
okay.
Well, if you really want to find out how groins work, you can go back in history. When the east end of the beach, all of that East Folly shores washed away, and the Corvette, we had a Coast Guard station there and a Loran tower, and it was in danger of falling into the ocean. The federal government, with my money and yours, came in and put groins, bam, 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 bam.
Yep.
Built 350 feet of beach. And that's how those houses on the East Folly shores are there right now.
What's East Valley Shores?
East Folly Shores is,
Past the
what is it? 1675 down.
Okay.
But we had the modern ones put in the last couple of years that we got
Yes,
the
sir.
money for. And
Yes,
that's
sir.
the ones, that's the
Yes,
ones
sir, we
I'm
have.
wondering
Yes.
if Dr. Elko's looking at that or.
3, you'll need a red book.
Yeah. Okay,
And what
just
about-
for, yep,
Sorry.
You're fine.
Is there, I don't know if this is even possible because it's Army Corps stuff, but to renourish, to get Charleston County Parks, somehow encourage them to get in partnership with Army Corps so that when you are renourished on one end or the other, they are done at the same time? Cause you can see how that's gone down there. They didn't get renourished in the last one that we got, cause that's our
They
renourishment.
won't, and they won't put sand down
Army
there
Corps
because
won't
that
take-
belongs to the county and not the city of Folly Beach.
Right, but the
So
county won't, they won't
Therein is your
coordinate with the.
problem,
It's
okay?
not part of the contract.
It's not part of the
I
contract.
gotcha.
could it be?
Yeah,
It-
Could there be a partnership created with
Do
the
the
county?
county
Possibly,
It's to
I
their
guess,
advantage.
yes. Mm-hmm.
it's to our
My,
advantage too.
my understanding of it, the last renourishment, and I could be wrong on this, but when they surveyed it, that end didn't need the sand. Where the other ends did, and
That's correct.
because they have in the past, but this last time, I think they were just, because of the documentation and the line.
But 10 years ago, you couldn't see over that point on that end, and now it is dead flat. Like, I mean, we've lost 15 feet of sand from
I'm
that
sure
point.
they lost all those
So
buildings
the last
and everything
decade.
else.
Yeah, the
Oh,
building,
okay.
I mean, but the building right back there.
I was talking about on the other end, cause after renourishment,
Oh,
tide just came up around the renourished sand and washed away.
That was
I
one of the big
remember that.
hurricanes
Well, the
did that.
renourishment in 93 went to 17, 15 East Axis as far as it went.
I didn't ask
It was
you.
Ivan.
Well,
Okay, so for natural resources, do we have any other things that you guys would like to explore pertaining to, you know, beachfront renourishment, marsh, dune systems, wildlife? I think trees are on here, or any undeveloped land.
Well, the city's done a good job with the trees. In most instances, they have limited people just going in there and clear cutting a lot and putting a house up. And so they've done a good job with that. And, cause right now you have to prove that your house is gonna go where that tree is. And, cause we need the tree cover.
I think that's part of the community character, is the
Yeah.
nice
Big oak.
natural growth that we
Yeah.
have here.
Mhm.
Yeah, but we-
Okay, so let's move on to community character.
They're gonna put a, inn in there, kind of bed and breakfast thing.
Is there anything, so this, we can touch on short-term rentals, the flux that, Folly Beach is seasonal, how to make it attractive year-round, marketing programs, parking. Is there anything, besides the discussion that we've already had with my summary, because I think we made some really awesome points on that, does anybody want to add any more specific goals or implementation strategies in relation to community character?
Yes, I'd like to add under 5, the parking requirements that any new businesses required to have parking.
We fought that battle before. There's no place for them to have parking.
Okay.
It
So
says-
there are parking requirements
it
are now
says in the-
instituted.
And I don't mean to pick on you, Ryan, because I know you're here, but Ryan bought Folly River Lodge, it's adding capacity for residents and adding a restaurant, and it's not required to have a single digital, and I emailed you about this, I've been very,
Well,
very
it's the same
opaque about
with,
that.
And so they,
Taco Boy.
they can't, so it's different than Taco Boy. Can we call it new, old Wiki new
Yeah.
Taco Boy, whatever.
Yeah.
The one on Ashley,
Yeah.
parking requirements were removed at that time.
Correct.
Wiki got built. We were like, whoa,
Right.
parking requirements are now implemented back. So that is actually what is, I've had a lot of people want to, 7 West 2nd Street, the yellow building that's across from Loggerheads is for sale.
Mhm.
I've had a ton of people email me and say, what can I do with this? It's currently a duplex. They want to make it into a business.
Mhm.
I said, the only way you can do that is,
If you have-
one, you probably got to tear it down because you have a change of occupancy. And a lot of people aren't meeting the parking requirements because you need to park 10 cars on that
Right.
to have a sustain. So that we do have parking requirements for new businesses, and that's limiting the new businesses that we can have in the island, which is what you want.
Right.
So we do have parking requirements for new. That has been reinstated.
But if a surf shop underneath a residential has to have 20 parking spaces, and Ryan's restaurant doesn't have to have any, and
So,
again, I'm not picking
so,
on you.
so it's not a standalone restaurant. They
It's
can't.
still a restaurant, I don't
But
care
they
if it's
can't
standalone above
advertise,
Airbnb.
they can't advertise out, there's no entrance that's on the outside that you can say, I'm gonna walk up and go to this, you have
It's a
to,
restaurant.
you have to enter through the hotel from our zoning ordinance.
Mhm.
It's not a restaurant, it's an extension of the hotel. Parking has been increased
Okay,
on the,
So how do we fix that loophole? This one's done, I get it, Ryan, I'm not opposing his building and all, that's done. How do we stop that loophole in the future?
So right now, that's only the lodge and the Tides restaurant, like that it's not a restaurant because it's inside of the.
It
Right.
is
Hotel.
it is a restaurant, I mean, it may not be a
Well,
restaurant under our code,
in
but
the-
it is. Right,
in the
Ryan,
loophole
am I
way.
misspeaking, am I misstating?
Well, what we've done meets current zoning requirements,
Correct,
so
yeah,
because
that-
it's an
yeah.
accessory use, it falls within that. I think that
Right.
87 Center and the Tides, and I do have an approval for another one behind the purple building. Those are the only ones that I am aware of.
right.
Another what?
Hotel with a restaurant.
So
One
you're
of-
doing a third hotel with restaurant without any required parking?
Second, not third.
So you have low life?
Yeah, that's a.
I mean, you'll need parking for your inn, for,
Yes, yeah, we've already got all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do we fix the loophole of accessory use for a restaurant, non-restaurant to be open within a lodging area and not require?
So,
we would have to we would have to evaluate that. I'm
I'd
not
like
gonna
to
have
put
the
that in
answers
so
on
we
the
can
top of my
talk
head,
about that.
but we can have that as a goal. What is your goal?
Well, perhaps she's suggesting that we need to look at the zoning,
Yes.
as an, something other than the comprehensive plan. I think, is that what?
I just think that the more, I'm trying to pick my words carefully here because, Brian, I really like what you do on the island. But I think the more overbuilt a lot is, when you add a little lodge that Sunny Kurt had that was 5 rooms that were rented out, and now it's gonna be 6 or 7, or I don't know what it is, plus additional people being able to sleep above in lofts.
So,
Plus a restaurant where there's gonna be a minimum of 6 employees, and then there's gonna be another 30, 40 people that go into it. I just think that needs to have parking. I just think that we're overbuilding the lots because there can be so much square footage and accessory usage. I just think it's contributing to,
so from a community character standpoint, your goal, your statement is there's too much density in the commercial district for the town.
there you go.
And to preserve community character, you would wanna see a decrease in use
Mhm.
and multi-use of lots.
Right. And when parking requirements added.
The
'Cause we
parking
look at-
requirement's already there, so if you're like, they're there, they're actually, they're unattainable at this point,
That-
like,
yeah, there's
Like,
gonna,
you can't-
there's gonna
Okay,
be.
so from your point of view, what makes it, like, I want you to be able to do what you wanna do, but I also want there to be parking.
Yeah,
Like, how do we meet both of those
Yeah,
goals?
no, that's a great question, and I'm not sure I know the exact answer. The problem is, there really isn't an opportunity for new businesses to come because the parking,
But you
Regular.
like
just-
every lot would have to be the washout for a new restaurant to be built on an empty lot. You would have to have the which is
But
3
then
lots.
he's got a workaround, which is clever. I mean, kudos to you.
I mean, that's an
think
existing
great, but-
building, and then he found an accessory use
Yeah.
that was permitted, that he can't have outdoor signage, you have to go through the lobby, basically. I mean, really, it's just like a hotel bar. Like, there's maybe 6 seats and like 3 or 4 tables. It's not huge.
At the lodge.
At the lodge.
The Hotel Folly, sorry.
Right, yeah, hotel fun.
Yeah, we're adjusting tonight.
Yeah. It's not gonna be like a low life under there, so parking is being increased on a lot because they took out the pool. It's not as bad as you think it is.
Okay.
Maybe you could close that loophole by saying that, yes, you can have that kind of occupancy, but if you have more than this much seating capacity, you also have to fall into the parking.
Well,
I just think
what
we
she's-
should eliminate the accessory use.
I think what you're
Right.
really suggesting is that we need to examine the zoning issue,
Mhm.
not, and that's really not part of the comprehensive plan that we're reviewing
Okay.
tonight.
Uh-huh.
So would that go
I
in the
would say
citizen,
as
not citizen,
perhaps new business,
Okay,
you might wanna bring it up as new business.
I mean,
okay.
yeah, I could see that. I do see it fitting in the comprehensive plan.
I
But
see it,
specifics of zoning,
Right.
we're not really gonna get into that.
Mhm.
But we could be, you see a problem statement,
Mhm.
which we just outlined.
Right.
The goal is reduce accessory uses, whatever.
Right.
Implementation strategy is assessing zoning regulations, for the desired use of the commercial
Mhm.
district.
Okay, that
Um,
sounds excellent.
Yeah,
no, but if this is something that
Mhm.
you strongly believe in, which it
Mhm.
sounds like it is,
Mhm.
I would present it to the planning commission
As a separate.
and
Outside.
as a
the-
new business.
if it's a-
and probably get with a council person,
Mhm.
so it can be then remanded to planning, like, a council person will need to like sponsor the bill, right?
Okay.
To introduce it, then that bill will, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
That ordinance language would be then remanded to planning commission.
Okay.
We would then have it would be on the agenda, we would have a conversation.
Right.
You guys would make adjustments, whatever, recommend whatever you want,
Mhm.
version of that, back to council, and then they would do 1 or 2 readings.
So that's not something you would put in the
it's-
commissioner's comments? I think?
Well, it's perfectly okay to put it in the comprehensive plan,
Well, I
that that's a
meant-
concern.
I meant the right place to bring it up wouldn't be in the commissioner's comments, you would.
And so you can make an additional
Go
comment
to-
at the end to be like, I really think we need to do this,
Mhm.
but for you to make it a reality, you would need to get with council. I can put it in the comp plan.
Mhm.
I can make it a strategy,
Yeah.
and then we'll talk about it in June. Any more community character, short-term rentals,
Yeah,
parking?
I think a lot of people would be happy with eliminating one-night rentals outside of hotel use.
Can you tell me?
Item number, number
open
one.
short-term rentals.
mhm,
And also 10.
okay.
Let's say 1 week.
Something
So-
to consider,
Eliminating 1 days.
one-night rentals outside of the hotels.
Hotels and inns, or just, we really only have one hotel?
The Holiday Inn
Hotels
isn't
and
like
inns.
I think it's an inn.
okay, well,
I don't.
It's kind of splitting
I
hairs,
think
but
that
I'm just
Ryan
trying
should be
to.
allowed to do a
Yeah.
one-night rental because.
he should be
he's
allowed to if the
managing,
tides
like,
can.
Beachside is managing.
So like
I think
true
a true
multifamily.
multifamily. I don't
But
think
not
there'd
a
be need
duplex.
for somebody
No,
to not be able to
du-
come and
duplex
stay
is
Hotel
two
Folly
Yeah.
for a night.
Multifamily is 3 or more units.
I don't think 3 or 4 unit, like a triplex or a quadplex should either, like hotels and inns, okay?
Yeah, and that's
This
different.
is my opinion, but.
Yeah, that's different.
Cause we want those inns to be able to put heads in beds. It's just,
Eliminates people coming down for a single frat party or
stopover.
something, yeah.
yeah.
But not all of them are coming down for a single frat.
Not all of them.
And there are places
That's
that.
why, yeah, I mean, we need to keep 2-night rentals because we need people to be able to
I
come
think
from
most
Columbia and
people-
Greenville
most
for the
people that
weekend or
do
whatever.
Rentals out here
Yeah,
will have a 2-night minimum. Or
A lot of
there's
people
very
will.
Very few that would do a one.
It's not even really feasible to do a one night because of the cost of
The
cleaning.
cost of
Cleaning
turnover.
and all
Yeah.
that. It's
Yeah,
not
the-
cost
It's
effective.
not cost effective
not
for a
cost
one-night
at all.
rental. No.
I'll tell you this much,
Even if it's a Airbnb in your phone.
it would
It's
look
not cost.
really nice to residents if that was put through. It'd be a good, honest effort to address,
Do you see it as a problem?
do I?
I don't see one night rentals as, me personally, am where I
Cause
live.
you do it. Where
No.
I live, no, but
I don't see
the
it
people
as
who
a-
complain the most are the people that live very close to here in general, where I would assume that's where,
Are there a number of one-night rentals?
how could I know? I don't know.
So
It's
maybe
just
do an
something that I've
assessment of
heard.
rental patterns. This
a
goes
lot.
back to my summary that we haven't assessed short-term rentals since 2018.
Mm.
So I would say short-term rentals have expanded. Short-term rental behavior has changed a lot in the 3 years with Airbnb and VRBO really exploding in that time. That it goes
How
along
does our
with.
short-term rental policy address that, or does it?
I don't think it does at this time. So maybe we need
I
new
think we
short-term
need a
rental
full-scale
policies
review of short-term rentals.
and just really assess what is happening for short-term rentals on the island.
Right.
Yeah, I will make sure that we do that.
Reinvent the wheel. How many times have we gone over this, Michael?
Okay, anything else in community character?
Yeah.
I have all the historic preservation talk that we had earlier. I have parking already, density, other short-term rental stuff that we just talked about. Anything else that we wanna go over? Okay, next is enhancing public services. There are 16 goals in this one. So it ranges from tax funds, and like economics with how we save money, how we spend money, how we earn it, water quality, transportation for parking again, traffic volumes, recreation, water and sewer infrastructure. I will say in the Seal of Rise strategy that was done in 2017, I think, one of the plans that was identified is a drinking water delivery plan, basically with the threat of sea level rise and saltwater, delivery of potable water gets threatened. Same thing with sewer systems. So looking at that from a resilience standpoint, maybe that gets added under 8. And that is supported by the sea level rise strategy as well. Mid-block right-of-ways is in here. Septic systems. The city is still working with Sea Grant, with North Carolina Sea Grant on their septic system evaluation with Sea Level Rise. That's in partnership with Nags Head and the Outer Banks up there, facing similar issues.
On number 6, traffic volume on the island increasing, creating dangerous situations for cyclists and pedestrians. With the pedestrian pathway that they're making now, after they study it, are there any plans to expand it if it's doing well? And I'm gonna say something crazy,
Expanding the
but
head paths?
yes,
Okay.
I think there should be a pedestrian bicycle path all the way down Ashley from park to park. Cause there are tons, I know it sounds crazy now, but we could possibly study it and make it a reality. There's so many that give a little extra room on the washout for people opening and closing their doors, getting their surfboards out. There's an infinite number of golf carts going down that road. Increased traffic than you see on the other residential roads because people are going to those parks on either end. And there's just a ton of people walking and biking out there any time of the day. And
One of the issues is how wide
The
the right-of-way
room,
is.
yeah.
Is. I know at the washout, it starts 75 foot.
It's a 90-foot right away.
I thought it was 75
It's
foot.
90.
90? But before that, it's 60, I think,
Yeah,
right?
it's 50.
50.
It's 50 on the rest of the
So-
island, yeah.
What you'd have is a compressed
of the cars
lane, yeah,
driving.
and up to the washout, and then it could be wider.
Yeah,
But if
there's-
you combined, if I'm understanding, if you combine an extra row parking on Arctic and then took away one row parking on Ashley to make the ped path all the way, it would kind of be a wash, wouldn't it?
Yeah, you could do Arctic to 12th down there. I'm not sure about the other
I don't
side,
think
but
it's as bad past the washout with pedestrians walking, and those houses are farther back, so the line of sight is better past the
Yeah.
washout.
So that's the kind of stuff that
That's
would
true.
be looked at in that connectivity plan that I talked about with like the recommendation from the parking committee. So like ped paths, bicycles, even electric charging stations, as that's like a federal push to have more electric vehicles. And then how all of our mid-block right-of-ways connect, if we have, if we increase pocket parks around the island, everything needs to communicate with each other across the island and across all of our long-term plans too. So I think if we do projects like that, it should also help with stormwater drainage. It should protect the beach in some way. So I love that idea. Like every project should be multifaceted, that it has multiple purposes. So it's community safety, but also a community amenity. Residents now don't have to take their golf carts as many places because they have a fun place to ride their bike, or they actually want to walk down the road because they're not going to get hit by a car.
Safety.
And,
Anybody
yeah,
that walks
safety.
down Ashley Avenue's got to be an idiot,
Well,
okay?
and Paula, I think it's a great idea. I think if we had something all that way, but and you can ask Aaron about this. What it comes down to is how much land you have to have for the DOT to fall into their little program. Aaron is well versed on that because I brought up the same thing, and I don't think there's enough room by
the
state
whole
standards
island or just
on Ashley. We had talked about Ashley, but I would ask him.
But if we lost the parking, it'll somehow.
I don't think it's even got to do with parking. I think it's and Aaron knows way more about
It's
this.
the right of way that we don't own, the right
It's
of way.
the right away
it's
we
right
don't
away.
own, yes.
And you have to have for the sidewalk. You have to have so much room just for a sidewalk. It doesn't seem like you need that much, but DOT's got some kind of standard, and Aaron knows way more about that.
And it's a big maintenance issue too. Like,
well, I wonder
for
if it's
these-
less
Hudson?
room you
Yeah.
need
Oh,
for
it's,
one of
I think it's
those.
worth talking about for sure.
And even if we can like incorporate the mid-block right-of-ways into a ped path and kind of like formalize those a little bit more, it may not be a direct path, Paula, from park to park, but it could be a pathway.
Yeah, if
that
you
maybe
just had little
goes-
signs like the shortest whatever short
Yeah,
it, seed it,
it could be kind of fun. It could be funky.
Yeah.
It could be Folly. It's not going to be a direct thing, but there's one there. It could be cool. So yeah, I'll add that as a strategy.
Yeah, the safer we can make it for walking out here, the better off we all
Yeah,
are.
it would be
It's
really
forever to
cool.
get from my house to Center Street. And around. And, people aren't trying to be unsafe. There's just no place for them to walk.
Right.
We just ride like hell to
You're
12th
right, there's
and then
no
take a
place for
right.
them safely to walk.
But it would be
Right.
really cool to make it a community thing if we could make it where it like rode by some of those pocket parks or something.
Yes,
And then
that's
it was
what
like
I
a,
see.
like a scavenger hunt
Yeah,
kind of like.
like I think you can walk from Shadow Race Park
Yeah.
through
And you know,
right-of-ways
Fab
down to
did
the
something
beach.
I don't
There
know.
might be like a
about
couple that
two or
aren't
3
open
years
yet,
ago.
but,
They
like,
were trying
how
to
cool
get
would that
all
But
of
there would have to
the
be,
bars
like,
and restaurants to
signs
tell
and-
people to
That's
turn their
a third
flashlight on their
street.
cell phone when
It's
they walk.
Third Street
Yeah.
coming
And I wish
across
we could
there,
get more of
and
that
it
going
is-
on, because when
it's
people do, I do it
paths,
now, it's a
but
habit
they-
of mine.
They will go all the
Just
way
because
to
people
the
don't
beach.
see it.
If
Yeah.
my girls go out at night down there while they drive now, but before they drove, I would make them bike down Arctic, going towards the city, so that they could see everybody, and when they were coming back, they'd go up Indian and wind their way all the way back.
Yeah.
It's the only way that's
Mhm.
safe.
Yeah,
But if you're a tourist, you don't necessarily know that, like, if you're a stranger in a strange land.
yes.
So,
Okay.
Then you add the alcohol and it's even worse.
That's true.
Anything else for public services? Affordable housing.
You can forget
That's a
that for
lofty
Folly
goal,
Beach
yeah.
anymore.
yeah.
There's
That
no
does-
affordable.
That doesn't
Barely
exist.
affordable
Mm-mm.
housing.
This didn't have anything to do with like public safety, right?
What is it?
This part?
Public services is public safety.
Oh,
So yeah,
okay.
if you want to talk about public safety, this
Well-
is our last time for any last ditch efforts.
Oh, well, does this have to do with the police?
Air it out. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to air out whenever
Air
city
out.
council,
Yeah. What you want to talk about?
whenever city council passes an ordinance such as the smoking ban, it would be wonderful if there was some kind of blitz, quote unquote, where there was increased presence on the beach for like 3 months, where they were just ticket, advertise it for 2 weeks and then start ticketing so people know this is serious. I'm sure a lot of you people saw a Facebook post on Folly Beach residents where a lady asked the guy to stop smoking and he laughed in her face. What are you gonna do about it? And really, that's the issue with a lot of the beach ordinances, that
We
nobody
don't-
cares because
we
nobody's
don't-
gonna enforce
We don't
it.
have the personnel either, okay? There's 2 police officers on at a time. There is no way they can be out on that beach. and
Do they
that.
get hired more in the summer
No.
to patrol? They just ask for those like hourly?
We
They have the
have-
ticketing people.
We have the ticketing people, yes, we have those, yes.
They don't need to, they do it like people with dogs and beer cans.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm not criticizing that as a job, that is a hard job that I would not want. But you do see it very difficult with all the things they have to
Mhm.
enforce, they have to stop at every single group of people.
Just seems like there has to be a way that if you're gonna make ordinances,
So with
you can show people you're serious about them, even if you don't continue that forever. Just
So how I see that being incorporated into the comp plan. Comp plan says this is our long-term vision for our city.
Mhm.
We would like to enforce our ordinances. To be able to do that, public safety maybe needs to be invested in more.
Yes.
Or aspects of it, or increase budgeting during the summertime when we have an influx, or around new ordinances so that it's a priority for 3 months. Because then
Or
that rolls
just
in.
higher taxes.
Well, Randy, when
So
people
then
are,
that rolls over
You
into
do, you do wanna
certain
get strung out,
community
don't you?
natural
We gotta
resources,
have money to
all
fund all
that. So I
this
could see
stuff.
that, and then
That's
that
why-
opens it up to council to say, well, planning commission is saying, to achieve all the things that we want and all the ordinances that we're passing, we need to invest more in
I
this.
think that's a
Let's
great idea.
adjust our budget, let's look at our strategic plan as
And
council,
a little more
and then that gets.
insurance,
Okay.
you know?
Randy, do you know if for police training, do you have to do like internship-esque type things?
No,
No?
out here, I mean, to be a cop, you'd have to go through the,
Yeah.
training academy and all like that, but they do hire the part-time guys and full-time guys for the summer for beach patrol and all like that, but like I know y'all have a lot of problems with dogs down there, and it's hard for those guys to get down there in time, so it would be nice to have more beach people. And less people writing parking tickets maybe.
But they can
Yeah.
write parking tickets, they can't write certain
Right,
infractions
but they,
because
But they could use the walkie and call somebody.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yes, they could do that.
Could they be given the authority to do that? To ticket
That's
smokers
a
or?
state law, we
is it
have to
state?
find out
Okay.
about that as to
Yeah.
what,
There have to be certain employees, like you
Yes.
couldn't have
Okay.
like a volunteer base to be like, go and ticket these people.
Exactly.
It would,
Mhm.
So the
Yeah.
beach patrol people in their cute little yellow t-shirts can't write tickets for like dogs
They
on the
write
beach
parking
and alcohol
tickets.
and the ones on the ATVs on the beach. They can write tickets for alcohol and dogs and all that, can't they?
I think the ones on the ATVs are actual police officers.
It's a mix, and I don't know the
Yeah.
state laws, but even if they can't write a ticket, they can, use their walkie and
or at
call
least
somebody
educate
in.
They
people
can
to
get
be
a
like,
ticket.
Yeah,
hey,
they can get somebody to write a
Because I've
ticket there.
called them.
But in this particular part about notifying community, I think that the fix click thing,
See fix click.
I
See
think
click fix.
I think we need to utilize that and let people know about it more, because when you're on the beach and you see something, you can take that and it goes to several people, and something has to be done about it, which I think is a pretty powerful tool we have out here.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no lawn in my yard.
okay.
Click fix.
I think we've had a great discussion. Do you guys have anything that you,
A lot of
long
discussion.
discussion,
Very
that
long.
you guys wanna add, or make sure that I include, for our next meeting? I'll make sure that I'm gonna try to send out a little bit earlier than.
Please,
the
yeah.
third. If this seems like a big thing to review, so we can have a really good discussion.
I'd like to see some of your wedding photos next time.
Oh, I'm right here if you wanna look at them. I can send you guys my 3-minute wedding video, probably make you guys cry.
Are we doing resiliency
Stop
next
her
time?
lawn to do it.
Yeah.
Are we doing resiliency next
Okay,
time?
we have any more commission comments before we move for adjournment? Anybody else want to say anything? Yes, ma'am.
I would like to, maybe this needs to get a city council partner like your thing, but I would like to talk about dogs and no longer recognizing Fido Club as it is not even regulated. And times I have called public safety, they're like, oh, they're probably in Fido Club, and didn't even go ask or check or
You
anything.
mean being able to run on the beach off
So,
their leash?
yeah, I think it would be wise as a community to not allow dogs on the beach off a leash for any reason.
Okay, cause that was the case at one
Mhm.
point, and we got so much push from the people with animals
Mm-hmm.
wanting to walk their dog on the beach, and that's how that came to pass. But there has been a time when no dogs were allowed on the beach, yes,
Yeah.
except off
Are
season.
you a dog owner?
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
we
think
get
it's wrong to
accosted by
recognize
dogs
a
off their
private
leash all the time.
organization to-
I'm not against dogs on the beach at all. I'm against them on the beach off a leash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah,
they're
it's wrong.
just in general.
Well, you
But-
don't know if the dog's gonna be aggressive or
Right, you have
not.
no idea. And if you
Uh-huh.
also have a dog and another dog runs up to,
That's true.
or they're jumping on you or whatever,
And it
but
doesn't bite until it does.
Okay, can we put on for, next meeting that we, go back and look at the dogs on the beach ordinance? And see if we want to do any changing there.
And this-
That works?
thanks. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right.
And whatever you told
The
me to do, the
zoning?
new business thing, I would like to,
Yeah, the parking and
yes,
businesses.
like to go
Okay,
back and look
all right,
at.
and we can put that on the agenda there. too.
Parking,
Talk with the city
parking
council.
and accessory uses.
Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
in the commercial area.
Yes.
Now, do you need to have one of the council members?
Not for us to have a discussion. We
Okay.
can put anything on the agenda, we can say,
We can-
we wanna chat
Yeah,
about
we can
it.
send it to
Yep.
them.
Yep, and then, if,
That's
I
our
think
job.
we can do a commission, I think we can just do like a report to council, like they have a
That's correct.
committee, commission reports. And we can say, we have a report that we wanna deliver to you, council members, we need an assessment on this.
Right.
You know, we would really like to see some ordinance changes.
That word planning, that's us.
Maybe as a follow, is there any way you can get stats on if any, like how many noise complaints we're getting
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
on rentals and how many?
Karen Mumford does that
warnings?
report through public safety, she does it every week.
If you could send it to us, that would be
Yep.
very helpful.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Third.
I beat you to it, Michael. Okay, we're off record.
you're leaving this? I'm gonna take it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Put it in my notebook.